This is an introduction to adding two-digit numbers by two-digit numbers. It's suggested that you watch the place value video and the number line video to get a more in-depth how to use those. So the first thing that we have to do is I notice at the bottom I have the different cubes from the base 10 blocks, and then I'm also going to show you what it looks like with them drawn. So with the ones, and it is not a cube or a square like it is for the hundreds, because when we have limited spaces for drawing, a circle is easy to recognize from the other ones. So on the tens, it's a stick. Notice it's not separated. The hundreds, it's a square, and then the thousands is a square with a little L. The size isn't so much important when we have limited space, because that's why they're different shapes. So the next thing we have to do is draw these on the lines, the numbers. So you look at the first number. Notice here that the lines, the number are between the two lines, because that is a problem with the students. They want to write something like this or like this, and then it makes it hard to follow where these problems are. So that's something that we learn in the very beginning of the class. So then we put at the top here, I keep it between the lines again, and I group them in groups of 5, which makes it easy because of the 10 frames. So count by 10s and 5s. And then I do the ones. You can do the ones first or the 10s first. It really doesn't matter. But again, I do keep them between the lines, and it's groups of 5 again. Now we do the 29 and then the 9 ones. And notice again that I do not put them with the ones on the top, because if we do that, it'll be hard to remember where they, how many pieces they put in the beginning. Now we also start one step before this using the blocks themselves. So this is actually the second part of the introduction. We would only at first use these manipulatives in class, and so you can't take those home. So that's why it's the drawing one is an easier one to do at home. So once we have this, we look and see, does this 5 and this 5 make a 10? Yes. Or you can say, can we add 1 to this from there to make this a 10? So yes. So I'm circling I'm circling these right here to make the 10, and then I'm moving it over here. So then I put how many's left, which is 5. Now when we do this, there are not different colors. I'm showing you them because it makes it easier to see. So, and I also noticed up here, I am not doing regrouping here. That's the next step. So now that I've done the ones, I do the 10s. So the 10s, we have 5 here, 6, 7, and then one we added would be 8. Sometimes they forget to add that one, so we would then put 8 here. Again, I am not putting anything up here. That's the next step. We do this for quite a bit until they start seeing, oh, when you move this up here and move it over, we moved it up here. So they start to see that. So the next slide will tell you how to do it with the base 10 blocks and the regrouping. If you would like to do a practice, here is a practice problem. Oops, sorry, just one second. Okay, so here is a practice problem for you to do. I did keep it within under 100 so that you don't have to go worry about going into the hundreds place. So you can pause the video and see if you can try and solve this on your own before we go to the next slide. Okay, so hopefully you solve this problem. I went ahead and put on here the base 10 blocks. So what you would do next is see if you have enough to make a 10. And if you put all these together, yes, that does make a 10. So I'm putting it over here. So that makes this 0 left. So there was 0 there. Nothing was left. So then we go to this one. There's a 5, 6, 7, and then there's an 8 again. Then we would add the one more that I've regrouped. So that would be a 9. So it would be 9. I do want to say one other thing that I do have to write this with my finger. I don't have a stylus, so I'm a little bit bigger on my line. So this really should be between these two lines, and this should be between these two lines. Notice here that I did these smaller. That's how we would do it if there was more than 5. And then these are a little bit bigger than I normally would because of my finger draws bigger. So now I redrew the last problem, and I'm going to show you now how to do this with the base 10 blocks and the regrouping. So it's the same problem. Notice again, I did draw these a little bit smaller so that they would look a little bit neater. And I did not point out, notice these are not filled in. We don't want to fill it in. It takes too long to do that. It's supposed to be real quick. So again, we look at does the ones place, if we move this over here, does it make it 10, or do we have 2 5s? Yes, we do. So I would circle those and move it over, and I would draw that on my paper. I didn't say that before, but I do circle them and move them over, and again, it would be with a pencil, not with another color. So now when I did that, I said, okay, so that's a 10. When we did that, these were left right here, a 5. So it was a 15. It was a 10 with a 5. So we put a 5 here, and then we carried the 1 over there. So after we did that, we would then look at the tens place. So we had 5, 6, 7, and then the one that we regrouped over here, which would make it 8. So we would then write in 8. So that would be the combination. There is another step that you could also do that we take away the base 10 blocks. But I'm going to give you another practice again first to practice it with both of these. So just a second. Pause the video to get some paper and then come back if you don't already have it. Okay, so here's 2 problems that I put on here. Notice I have a slight area here. I would not do this on a piece of notebook paper with the students. I would put this one on a new paper, and then I would put, this is their answer line right here, and then I would have them, skip this line, and then do the next one. So like here, there's 2 lines missing. That's where I would have it done. So solve these problems on a piece of notebook paper with the regrouping right here and with the base 10 blocks, and do the base 10 blocks and regroup at the same time. So you did this first. If you moved it over, you put 1 over here like you did when we did over here. Okay, go ahead and solve them and come back. Thank you. So now that you have solved these problems, we are going to solve them to see if you've got it right. So the first thing is to check, do we have enough here to make a 10? Well, yes, we do. So if we circled the 5, the 3, and the 2 right here, that makes a 10. So I'm going to put it at the top, just a second. So we have left the 1, and then the 1 went over there. So we have a 1 here and a 1 here. Now we look at the tens place. We have a 4, and we have a 4. If I had put it here, I would have had a 5. I didn't have enough room there, so that would have been a 5 and a 3, which would have been an 8. So here's an 8. Now on the other problem, you do not have enough to make a 10. So we do not need to move anything over. So all you would need to do is put a 9. Oops, sorry. And then we count 5, 6, 7, 8. So there is no regrouping on this one. So it's an 89. The next step is the one we're going to take away the blocks totally. So go to the next slide. So now after we've done those 2 steps for a while, now it's time to take away the base 10 blocks all the way. And again, this is not totally just regrouping. It's still a way to help them remember. So the next step is when we look at these 2 numbers right here, we see does this make a bigger number than a 10? It does. It makes a 15. So then I have them underline this, and that is in the ones place, so it goes here, so we draw an arrow. This is a tens place, so I have them draw the arrow to cover the ones place because they want to put something here, and there's not supposed to be something. So then they put the numbers where they belong. So this is a 5, and then this is a 1. So now we add 5, all of these together. Now they want to forget to add this one, so that's why they drew this arrow here. So it would be an 8. So here's another problem for you to try. 1 second. So now we have, with this one, a 9 and a 9 makes an 18. The ones is an 8. The tens is a 1. So they would put the 8 here and the 1 here. So then they would add the 5, the 3, and the 1. And that would make it a 6. So I'm going to write some more problems for you to practice doing this. And again, this is hopefully a short transition. Some of these some of the students will already stop doing this part of it because they realize that where the numbers go. But some still need this for a while before they go straight to the regrouping only without the arrows. Okay, so now try and pause the video and try and solve these. And then turn it back on to see if you got the answer correct, only using the strategy right here without the blocks and drawing the arrows. Hopefully you stopped it and came back. So when we look here, 6 and 8 is a 14. So you would underline the 4. This would go here. The 1 would go here. So this would be a 3. I would say I would add the 1 to the 5, 4 to make a 5, and make that 5 and 3 is 8. So it would be an 84. So this one would be a 16. I'm sorry, not a 16, a 15. A 15, the 5 would go here. The 1 would go here. And then we have a 2 and a 2, which is a double. 4 plus 1 is a 5. Now, by this time, most of the students are realizing that all the numbers that are added to once we've done this a lot, all the numbers that are being regrouped, they are ones. They're not bigger than 1 because you can only go to a 10 and a little bit over a 10. No matter what number you add, the highest numbers you're going to have are 9 and 9, and they will not go to a 20. Even if you had a 9 and 9 here and a 9 and a 9 here, that would only make this middle one a 19. It wouldn't make it a 20, so you would never have a 2 there. So another strategy that we would use is not using the blocks, but would be also using place value still. And this could be done, I would introduce this around the same time as the place value. So it wouldn't be way after, it would be the same time. So when we look at 56, we say that there are 50 tens plus 6 ones. And then when we look at the 29, we say there are 20 tens plus 9 ones. And so that right there can be added together. So we could also even write it like this. So what we would do here is we would add these, so this should be a 0 and this should be a 7, and then this is the 15 again. And then they would add this, by looking at it sideways, they would be able to tell that the 0 and the 5 would be 5, and the 7 and the 1 would be 8. So it's the same down here. I just wanted to show you. So that's another way that they could do it. So here's another problem if you wanted to try that this way. So you can go ahead and pause it and see if you want to try that one. So I wrote down what the problem would be if it was in base 10. I'm sorry, not base 10, but place value. The 66 would be 60 tens and 6 ones, and then 17 would be 1 10 and 7 ones. And then you would put this as a 0 and a 70, plus a 6 and a 7 would be a 13. So I don't have enough room here to make the equal sign, but the 3 and the 0 would be 3. The 1 and the 7 would be 8, so it would be 83. So we would put 83 right here. So that is one other way to do this. So the last way of doing this is basically looking at what do we know about these numbers. So when I look at 56 and 29, I notice that this number right here is close to a easy number like 30 to add. So what I would have done is I could have written 55 plus 30. So what I did was I took, let me write it sideways, I took one of these away right here and I moved it over there so that it's the same number, which would make this easier to add. So then it would be 55 and 0 is 5, and then 5 plus 3 is 8. So that is another way. If it's a different problem, if you looked at a different problem, like 37 plus 48, you could break this up. So I would say, okay, this number is close to a 10, or that number is close to a 10. So you can move some of these over to here or some of these over to here, whatever you want to do. I would probably, so it could be written two ways. So I would break the 30, you could break the 35 into, the 37 into the 35 into 2, and then you would say, okay, so these two numbers would make a 50, so you would write on the next line 35 plus 50, because this would make a 50. So now, again, that makes it an easier number to add. So the 0 and the 5 made a 5, and then the 3 and the 5 made an 8. You could also have done it the other way. You could have broken up the 48 into 3 and 45, which would have made 37 a 40 plus a 45, which would again make it an 85. So this is something that's a little bit harder for some kids to see, but some kids see this very quickly. What you're trying to do is make it so that they are simple or easy numbers to see and add together.